Hello, hello. This is the 199th Test from the Future, an experimental podcast from the year 2225, which we are sending from our present to yours. My name is Simon.
And I'm just some rando from the past.
And we're putting the past in podcast. So, yeah, this is an unusual episode yet again. Dirk's still on holiday. And in his place, the person from last week who was in the rainbow jacket, who I met outside the cheese shop in the 21st century, she's here with me now in the 23rd. And I'm going to talk a bit more first before she joins me here.
Don't worry, I have calmed down a lot since our last incident, because I have not been in the best of moods for the longest time, but I'm adjusting. It's all good.
Right, you've been here in the future now for a week already, yeah? So exactly when our listeners would have last heard you, you were very angry, and understandably, yeah, like you didn't know what was going on. And through our conversation
bonus
today,
points for actually being right. You actually are from the future.
I know. I mean, I knew that, but exactly, I'm glad that you now also believe me.
Yep.
Except that, check it out, exactly, you're here in the 23rd century.
It's been rough, man. I mean, there are lots of good things about being here, but there are also so many challenges in the sense of just being from a different time. I found it very hard to adjust to just the simplest things being so difficult because they are just so different.
Do you want to give an example?
I tried to find a hotel, and I guess the attendant, instead of giving me a key card to get in my room and blah blah blah, I just got teleported into this glass box.
Right, instantly.
And I had no idea what to do. I didn't know how to get somebody's attention. I thought I was legit trapped in there.
Yeah, and that was before I'd set you up with your own lens, so you didn't even have any way to call out.
Yeah, I had no idea what was going on.
And that was a big misunderstanding, because exactly hotels, understandably, they assume everyone has their own lens, their own account, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I guess these things are just so, givens to you guys that you don't even think about them. And, I've had the hardest time not just with that, but, just the simplest of things, knowing how to use a bathroom and just, getting myself water. And it's just such basic things that are just so hard because it's so different.
Right, and by now, a week later, I mean, some of those things you've worked out, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it's been rough. The perpetual strain after strain of having to adjust to the smallest things being so hard.
Sure. And once I showed you Wikipedia, at least you knew, okay, here's an online resource, I can look stuff up. But to your point, you don't know what you need to look up, yeah?
Exactly, yeah. And just the whole looking up process, it's just so overwhelming because, it's just too much. There's too much information. Your search engines are completely different. I have no clue how to adjust to it. And, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I had, just for a moment for our listeners, I just explain a few things and then we can come back. You mentioned that you were in a hotel, and I mentioned Wikipedia, and okay, you've needed to exist here in the future for the last week. So I did set you up with your own, so you had an ID that you could actually be known in the world, and you had access, then through that you had access to universal basic income. You could use the teleporters, your teleporter credits, you could use food conglomerators once you worked out how to get something to drink, and something to eat.
Yeah, that was a pretty big shocker to me, the fact that I could actually get an ID here and nobody questions it, or I didn't have to try so hard to prove who I am.
No, I mean, you said who you were.
Yeah.
They obviously did a DNA scan, said, yep, you are who you say you are, and that was it. And I remember you being so surprised by that, and you were saying how it would be much harder in the past, to get ID like that.
Depends on where in the past. Maybe 20, 30 years before my time, you maybe could have gotten away with it, but then with the rise of the internet and technology and just that developing even more, it just got so much harder to
So, from what you were saying, it sounded really distrustful, yeah? That people were really distrustful of other people, and so you needed to provide lots of evidence, lots of documentation.
Yeah. And that's what I like about being here, is that everyone in general is just so kind, and they're just so willing to accommodate you, and the whole universal basic income thing that you were talking about. I'm pretty blown away by that. I just cannot even fathom having that. because...
Like, it was an idea back in your time, yeah? And I think even a few... I remember learning in school that some countries had tried it out back then, but it didn't work for some reason.
Maybe you were thinking about a time like after
Could
mine,
be,
because
could be after yours, yeah.
I'm not aware of something like that happening on a grand scale or anything. Maybe I'm just not aware of it, but I just don't feel like something like that can even be possible because, as you said, we were all just so distrustful.
Right.
And everything in my time is just so chaotic.
And right, it does... One of the main reasons it works is that it's the same all over the world. Yeah, it's completely global. And again, from school, I remember the trickiness when just one country would have it was how do you determine who's eligible? And that's why, they cared so much about proving you had the right to be in that country, because they were worried, people will come from all the other countries to live here. That's a very silly way of doing things, yeah? Universal basic income, it's in the name there, universal. Okay, we're not talking about the whole universe, but at least the whole of the Earth, and the whole of the solar system. Everyone's eligible to money, enough money to live and live reasonably well, It's not like a poverty thing.
That is just... I'm having a hard time accepting that.
Yeah. I mean, Dirk and I have talked often about how... So, for example, we have a 3-day work week. It's a little bit harsh there. Some people are pushing for a 2-day work week. But, that work, it's not because you need to work for survival. Yeah, it's because you're doing something you're interested in. Myself, I'm on sabbatical at the moment. I've been for a few years. But, it's pretty relaxed here in the future.
This whole thing about a 3-day work week being a hardship just sounds so laughable to me because I work 50 hours a week. And I know people who work 60 hours a week just to survive.
That does not sound good.
It's not. Yeah.
Did you make any use of your cyborg chip the last week? Do you remember what that was? So that was the thing. So because you're from the past and you maybe don't, you almost certainly don't have.
I'm just so overwhelmed by all the
text.
tech. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Okay, but then.
Yeah, which one was that specifically?
That was so that because you're from the past, you don't have immunity to all the various diseases and whatever in the future. So that was just a little chip goes in your body, upgrades your immune system.
So it's like a vaccine, just like a tech version of vaccines.
Exactly. There's regular updates over the air for new definitions.
Yeah.
That was why you got it. I mean, that was necessary.
I mean, I've been feeling kind of woozy and weird, but
Maybe
I'm sure that's just like a huge adjustment for my body. Yeah.
And so, I mean, the reason I asked if you made use of it, I mean, your hair is still the same color. You could have, if you had wanted, for example, you could have made your hair bright pink. Like, you could have given growing wings.
So
takes
what?
longer.
Like I just think about it.
No, it's somewhere in the settings, so it's a little bit.
That's too much for me right now.
That's what I was saying. Actually, as I'm saying that, I'm thinking you've only been here a week.
I'm still trying to adjust to like the immunizations of stuff. So yeah, see, I can't even talk straight.
But on account of the Orjones, you've had a much nicer time understanding everyone. Yeah?
Oh my God, yes. I so appreciate that because, like, the whole time that I've been visiting Germany, it's been very hard to get around. Like,
meaning back in the 21st century.
Yeah. I mean, sure, you hear, people know English, but it's like in passing and just all this random stuff where, you're hearing announcements or you're reading signs. Like, that's not really helpful to be like, people speak English. It's like, well, if somebody's like asking me questions on the train, just randomly, and I have no clue what they said. Like, I that doesn't help me. But with this chip thing, whatever this is, the language translator,
yeah,
I appreciate that. Everything is smooth, and we can understand each other. Yeah.
And I'm so used to it. Yeah, like it's for me when I did myself go back to the 21st century, that was quite an adjustment. Yeah, going into a bakery, just expecting being able to, order something and. Okay, I could do the thing with pointing, and gesturing, but it was really strange for them not to understand me and for me not to understand them.
That's basically how it's been for me the last month.
Yeah. I mean, I have some loose German, but not enough. Bakery was okay, but like you're saying, in context, or out of context rather.
But I guess if you have these chips, why do you even need to learn a language at all?
For fun. But I mean, that's the point. I haven't learned it fluently. Picked up bits here and there. But Dirk sometimes will switch his off and speak in Dutch. And I pick up. I say I pick up. I think I can follow along a little bit, but not the majority.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah. And then, so you've obviously said quite a lot about your experiences here. Was there something that you really loved about being here?
Yeah, I think I mentioned the whole thing about the universal basic income and just the you know, the foundation that it took for that to be a reality, like how kind, gentle, and humane it must have been. And you know, I'm just like, how did this happen? I never thought this would be a possibility. And so, you know, me, in my past, you know, I work in libraries. And so I didn't know if there were libraries in the future or not. And I was actually able to find some and able to talk to people who work in libraries, and the connection between, like, you know, how libraries were able to make this a reality. Like, you know, they had a big part to play in the humaneness, fighting for, like, people's rights, fighting for dignity, fighting for all this stuff, you know. It's not just libraries, of course, there were other things going on, but because I come from that profession, it was interesting for me to hear about the perspective through the library field.
Yeah.
And I wish I could remember all the things that they said, because I am just so overwhelmed from, like, the smallest things I've had to figure out. And I would just like to be able to, like, spend more time in libraries and learn the history and just know how this was done. You know, not just from the library angle, but from, like, just in general, like, because this is just so baffling to me.
Sure. To, like, so you really would enjoy, reading the history of it, or looking back at the history of how it all came about. Yeah, that's a bit beyond the scope of 1 week, I see.
Yeah.
Right, and you mentioned, I mentioned, you know, so people don't need to work to survive, but a lot of folk like to work in libraries. It's one of those fields where there's a lot of satisfaction from the work. Okay, so then that's some of the things you really like about the future. I was wondering, though, is there anything you dislike about the future?
I don't know if dislike is really the correct way to phrase it, but I couldn't figure out how to use the food machine once I did figure it out, and I thought that you guys just had the worst food in existence. But that's because I didn't know that there was, like, a default setting that put everything bland, and you had to, like, add or customize it that way.
Right, like dial up. Dial up the tastes that you like.
So, like, that frustrated me because I was already so overwhelmed by, you know, just all the basic things that were so hard to figure out, and just, like, when you make the basic things so difficult, and then on top of that you give me disappointment, that I think that just set me off the edge and just left a bad taste in my mouth, no pun intended.
Literally.
So, you know, Yeah.
And then, right, I mean, I remember you being kind of, I don't know, annoyed, but the idea of vegan cheese last week was not so impressive to you. But what do you think of our vegan food now in the future?
I mean,
can you taste the difference?
It's not as great as the real thing, because I think it's just, I can't tell what's missing, but I know that, like, it's something about it just feels and tastes slightly off. But, you know, I guess it's something that you can get used to.
I mean, some people have said it's the pain and suffering. People who are really hardcore about their veganism, you know, back in the day, that the pain and suffering is missing.
But the pain and suffering was so tasty.
And that's exactly that's what added to the flavour.
Oh no.
So maybe you can experiment a bit more. I've not done this myself because I don't miss that taste yet. But some people have adjusted the food conglomerate, like basically come up with recipes that it somehow include.
What?
Like, not the pain and suffering literally, but whatever chemicals that produced in the animals.
If that was an option the whole time, wow. Okay, yeah, sure.
But again, it's not by default. Like you say, the default is bland. The default, because, you know, it's babies start using it, you know, so it's basically that they can build up their tastes over time.
I suppose, that's a setting. I may have to try the pain and suffering setting.
Yeah, it's probably got a nicer name, but okay, and then, so, okay, the food, but that sounds like you got it worked out. And anything else, or is the future all good?
I'm really liking being here, even though it's been very overwhelming. I think I would like to try it out a bit longer, because I feel like once I get adjusted to all the everyday things, maybe then I can truly appreciate how different things are here, with the humane treatment of people, and just such a vastly different lifestyle that you guys have here. And I don't know how or if I even will be able to extend my stay here, because I think, didn't you say something about me only having a week here?
Exactly. Like, you've been here for a week now, and Dirk and I have discovered that so far we can travel back in time once a week.
Mm-hmm.
And usually the amount of time we spend in the past is determined by the length of the previous episode of our podcast.
Huh. That's odd.
It's pretty odd. You've been here a week, and we are, I didn't say this at the beginning of the show, we are actually about to send you back, or at least that's the idea here. I've got the low fidelity wave burner here with me, battery pack, public teleporter. We're going to send you back in time.
Yeah.
And we're in Birmingham, in Alabama, in the US. That way you don't have to have a flight when you get back. You'll already
because I already missed my flight.
Exactly, you'll already be in the right place. So you were saying you might want to extend your stay here in the future?
I mean, maybe I need to get used to... I mean, I'm just baffled, first of all, that I can actually do this.
Traveling in time is a new thing for Dirk and myself as well.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm pretty overwhelmed by everything, and a nice break would do me a lot of good. Just to be back in, normalcy, and I would just like to have a normal bathroom, a normal room that has doors, a normal, dish from a restaurant.
Exactly, with legit...
That tastes like pain and suffering.
Exactly, legit pain and suffering, none of this ersatz kind. That's fair. And let me just check the time. We're coming up on the time. We'll be able to send you back. I think everything's set.
But then, how do I come back? Because I couldn't come back without you.
Sure, no, but you can just email us. michaellasagna5@gmail.com.
Can you write that down for me, or do you not have pens in the future?
I don't have one on me, but hey, just search for Tests from the Future. It's our podcast. The email address is, if you find the podcast, you'll find the email address. We mention it in every episode.
I hope I can remember that, because I've been through a lot.
Yeah, you have been. Okay, but Tests from the Future, hopefully that will... Tests from the Future, Simon and Dirk podcast. Mm-hmm. That should find it.
I will, hopefully.
Yeah. Right, you search for that, send us an email. We'll get the email in our present, which will be your future. And so you can just write to us if you like. And if you want, of course, come visit us again, just let us know and we'll come back. One of us will come back and get you.
It's really that easy, huh?
It seems to be that easy. It's surprising. We've been making this podcast for over 3 years. And for nearly all that time, we were just we're sending an MP3 back for people to listen to. And then very recently, turns out we could have been travelling back in person the whole time. And now, as of last week, bringing people from the past to the future. I think this will be fine.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Mind-blowing.
At some point, maybe people from the future might hear of this, but at the moment, only our listeners in the past are aware of all this.
So, do you think that maybe that maybe you have the key to something really big that could be really good or really bad?
Meaning maybe even more listeners for our podcast? I mean, that could only be...
No, I mean creating doorways for awful people to ruin all your stuff that you've got going on.
Nah, no one will be that mean. It'll be fine. Don't worry.
I don't think you understand how... No!
Well, sorry,
no.
I mean, sorry to cut you short there. I need to send you back in time now. Are you ready to go? You got all your stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, it's very nice to meet you and maybe hear from you again in the future.
All right, future boy.
Okay, don't worry about it. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, and so, that's the end of the episode, I guess. Our guest from the 21st century has left. I did hope Dirk would join me today, but I think he's not been able to. I sent him a message earlier. But that's okay, I can wrap things up. So, please send us an email to michaellasagna5@gmail.com. Put the number 199 in the subject line so that we know this episode went back in time.
Hey, Simon.
Hey, Dirk, you made it.
Yes, I got your message. Let me put on my stuff.
Please do. Hey, and I was just wrapping up, but hey, don't worry about that.
Are you already recording?
Yeah, you just missed our guest from the 21st century.
We had a guest?
We did. She, just teleported away just a moment ago.
Oh, man, I love episodes with guests.
They are good, they are fun, and I guess you can listen back at some point.
Okay.
But yeah, that was the person we met, actually, a couple of weeks ago.
At Fizzles?
No, not at Fizzles. It was when you and I went back, before your trip to Mexico. Remember you and I went back to Lorsbach?
Did we meet?
In the 21st century, and there was that woman in the rainbow jacket.
In the rainbow jacket, yes.
And I can fill you in later on the details, but basically bumped into her again last week, and then this was the extra special thing. She actually came with me to the future.
Whoa.
Which exactly, I was not expecting that. She was not expecting that. But then she obliged by being a guest on our show.
Wow. Okay. Cool. That was a really quick summary.
Yeah.
I had the overdiving course.
Of course.
I mentioned, right?
You mentioned to me, and I think I didn't actually mention it to our listeners. So.
Okay. Yeah, it was like a last-minute slot. I was basically waiting for a free slot for, I don't know, years. Is what it feels like it, and they suddenly had a free slot. But of course, it was like a course, and it was in all kinds of C notes, and then it comes with gear and discussions or whatever. So I couldn't really even
couldn't get away to record. No, and that's fair enough. And hey, like I said, so that's why I went back in time for an episode.
Yeah.
Check the idea we had of shifting it over to where was it, Hanau? That worked.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where did you end up?
Hauptwerk. Middle of Frankfurt.
Oh.
So that worked out very well. We can keep that in mind for the future. I did that last week. And then, hey, I'll fill you in on the details later. It all worked out.
I have lots of questions, but I guess how long have you been recording already?
Oh yeah, quite a while already.
Okay. Then we don't need to.
No.
Then I can talk about the overdiving some other time. But it's good that you're still recording because we still need to talk about what to do for the 200th episode.
Right, that's next week. It's next
exactly.
week, which I could have figured, saying 199th episode, but yeah.
I mean, of course, like the party that's taken care of. But what we'll do for the actual episode, I actually asked Mr. Dobalina to come up with some ideas.
That is a good idea. What were his suggestions?
Well, actually, he made a top 5. He, like in random order, let me look at the list he sent me. He said, plant a tree.
Okay, we did that.
Then, maybe another tree, I don't know.
Sure.
Maybe in this century.
Yeah.
Visit a museum. I don't know what kind of museum this would be. Read a poem.
He does like that. He likes poetry readings, doesn't he?
Yeah, he also said sing a song. He also likes songs.
Okay, yeah.
So, and then meditate on air. That was his top 5.
Yeah. For singing, I can sing like Cool for Cats. I can do a dodgy English accent, but other than that, I'm not much of a singer. I'm thinking, now I look at all of these 5 things. These are things that he likes to do. They are, yeah. He likes to visit. So if Mr. Dobalina hosts next week's episode, I guess our listeners know what's coming up. But maybe that's what that's what he was angling for. Yeah, maybe he wants to host the episode. Sneaky Mr. Dobalina. Read a poem. Okay, then. But how about we can come up with one? Yeah, we'll come up with something. Okay. At least we should come up with something between now and the actual episode. How about that? Let's do that. Then shall I wrap up again for real? Or? Yeah. Okay. I said it already, listeners, but hey, please send us an email at michaellasagna5@gmail.com. Put the number 199 in the subject line so that we know this episode successfully travelled back 200 years. And we'll appreciate that very much. And ask us any questions as usual. Right. Then thanks for listening. And see you in 20 years. Bye-bye.